We communicate with parents where the workforce is needed. We talk about what it is that is needed.
Remember, we went to this place and we didn't like the food.
Just a reminder, please mute your phones as you're joining, please.
Yes. And so, sorry about that, but I wanted to make sure that each of you that are listening today have an understanding of what their role is. And I know that many are going to talk about passion and all the reasons why we end up where we end up. But I want to make sure that you each understand that you are a workforce development solution for any country that you land. In this moment, the context is the United States. What problem are you going to solve? I am solving the problem for my state of Nevada, but I'm also doing it for the whole country because I created a program for my company to help people with pivoting, to help people that have been dislocated from the workforce to come back to work. And so I get to do this every day. What an honor. I get to do it for Zimbabwe. I get to do it for the United States. And I know many of you have different fields that you are doing work in. You do it for your country. You do it for your community. You do it for you so you can have fulfillment. So that is my why, everyone. In case many of you have seen me posting things every day, sometimes I tire. I'm like, is anybody even watching? Is anybody even paying attention? And then I remember that it could be just that one person that sees one post and it could change their life. I do this because I care. I do this because Zimbabwe did this for me first. I was given, and I owe Zimbabwe. I owe each of you on this call right now a piece of my Zimbabwe gift. So that is my why. If anyone has a question at all, I would like for you to reach out to me and ask whatever it is that you may need to understand about what I just said. But my hope is that it was clear why I do what I do and why this conversation is important for each of you to connect properly to the workforce in the United States so you can be impactful. And as you begin to choose where in the world you work, I also want and wish you impact. I am done with my introduction. I'm hoping that there are some questions that align with what I just stated. If not, I am going to popcorn it over to the next speaker so they can introduce themselves and their topic.
I'm just looking, Alita, and I don't see any questions. So if it's okay, I will proceed. So, hello, everybody. My name is...
Just interruption. We are going to let you flow. We will ask questions once you are done. So, guys, please write down all your questions or in the chat. Thank you.
No problem. So, my name is Catherine Mupomera. And I was introduced by a title, which is I lead the sales enablement efforts for my company. Now, very specific a name, but I think for some who may not be familiar with that industry, it would be with a bit of curiosity to wonder exactly what it is that I do. So to get to what I do, I will tell you about how I got there. I am also one of those people that came to the U.S. as an international student. Like Mr. Becker said, my first conversation with my parents was about going to the UK for nursing. And my mother said, you are going to go to London, as all of the UK is universally known. You are going to go to London as a nurse. And I said, no. And she said, yes. And I said, no. And as you can imagine, in an African household, this struggle became one that was quite contentious. But I knew in my heart, this was not for me. And, you know, for a while there, things were a bit difficult. If I ever failed at anything in the house, it was always, you could have been a nurse, right? You could have been doing well, you could have been a nurse. But I tell you this to kind of just preface my topic, which is about career choices. So I did not become a nurse. Instead, I actually went and became, my first job was as a lab technician. And I worked, for those that are from Zimbabwe, if you knew Blue Ribbon Foods, they had a training program, which I joined very successfully, did that. And it was absolutely the most fun that I've ever had in the sciences, because I've always had a passion for the sciences. It also then became boring, because after that, I did not like working in a lab. I found that I also had passion for people, but I did not know where to kind of converge those two efforts to end up in a place where I could be enjoying myself. Needless to say, you trudge on, because that was where the economy was at the time. Still very good, but starting to waver a little bit. I think there was some structural stuff going on. After that role, my mother came back again, and she's like, okay, you are going to America. And I said, okay, I'm going to America. And she gave me these forms for a university that had actually been halfway filled out. And she said, finish this. I didn't know the rest. And I looked at it. The science program that they had was not particularly attractive to me. And so I picked business. I said, what's the worst that could happen? I'm going to end up in business. Let's see what happens at the end of the day. So that is how I came to the US and joined a marketing, a business degree. And I actually did my undergraduate in marketing. And then soon after that, I guess after a restaurant career, I ended up going directly into an MBA, deciding that this was the route that I needed. I think, as you understand, when it's OPT time and you need the next step, master's was the next step. I was like, all right, let's go, let's do this. But following that, I got recruited into a sales career. Definitely something I was not interested in. It was just a stepping stone, because I knew that I was meant for other things. Don't ask me what those things were, but I knew sales was not it, right? And I also knew, based on a conversation I'd had with my mother, that I was never going to be a teacher, because she was a teacher for 37 years. So these were the things that I was absolutely clear about. And then the things that I was looking for, I was not yet clear about. As you go through your career, as you go through your discovery, just think of this, let's walk together so I can kind of help you understand what sometimes may happen. So I joined this company in a sales role, very entry level, selling on the phones. And let me tell you, I worked for this organization for 12 years, very successfully in a selling role, and I was a born salesperson. I didn't know it, but you had to get into it to find out, right? And so as I was mentored, we're going to talk a bit about that, as someone recognized my talent outside of my interest in it, they nurtured it, and they talked to me about, hey, you're really good at this. Why don't we continue and work with you so you can hone the skill and we can actually continue to have you grow, right? So I worked for this organization for 12 years, not to brag, but I did pretty good. And then I was recruited by another organization, and they were looking for some of the skill set that I brought along, right? Again, somewhere along the way, someone had tapped my shoulder and said, look, I know you love this sales thing, but I see that you have a talent or a knack for coaching, teaching, and people development. And I said, well, yeah, but, I really like what I do in sales. Well, COVID hit. COVID hit. I had actually started exploring credential in education, adult education, learning, and like Aletta said, workforce development. And so I took it seriously, decided to pursue that. And my company at the time, then there was a role, and they approached me and they said, hey, it looks like you have this credential that you put in your workforce folder. Why don't we explore you actually doing this for our organization? Follow me as we go. I became a teacher. The other thing that I absolutely knew I was never going to be was where I found my next passion after selling. And so in sales education, which is of course adult learning, is where I found my next professional home. Sales enablement is actually sales education coupled with change management and also coupled with the development of all your sales processes to make sure that your professionals that are in the selling roles get everything they need so that they can do their jobs. We essentially enable the sales process to happen, be it from an education or a process standpoint. And so that is how I am Catherine Mufumira, Sales and Implement Manager. Now, this story is to kind of give you a little bit of, shall we say, a glimpse into the changes that are potentially possible as you go through your life. I think it's fair that at any one point you're adamant about one thing and it be true. It is absolutely true at the time. What I do want to encourage is the ability to change your mind as you discover that you are changing, growing, and appreciating other things through exposure. That is the one gift that we have that continues to develop us. Exposure to business environments, exposure to other professions, exposure to mentors, or even other leaders that you look at and admire and say, I think I'd be really good at that, right? So I always say to new people that I'm working with or any of my mentees, I say to them, give yourself grace as you grow. So if it means your mother wanted you to be a doctor and you followed the path of being the doctor, that's fine. Follow that path. But if you find anywhere along the way, and parents, please forgive me, if you find anything along the way that tells you maybe this is not the right path for me, I think it's important for you to stop and work with a career professional to truly understand where your strengths are, why you may be feeling this way before you make any decisions. And it would then be okay, should you discover you're on the wrong path, to actually make that choice or that decision to say, I picked the wrong thing, I'm going to move to something else. Now, there's always the economics of finance, right? We would all love to be artists. I would probably have been singing somewhere along the way. I call myself to the Zimbabweans an honorary ghetto youth because I love dancehall music, but I don't think I'd ever be able to earn a profession, right, singing alongside Winky D. So instead, I do my 9 to 5, and then I enjoy that as a hobby, which takes me to my next topic. Make sure you understand the differences between passion, hobbies, careers, and those related choices, right? You may love music. I'm sorry?
No, we can't say anything. You can say it. Okay, now
we might have had somebody that needs to mute a bit.
Okay. Hold on, Catherine. I think Cassandra is fixing something there. Are we good to go, Cassandra?
No, coming on in
carry
5
on. It's
minutes.
not affecting anything. Sarah?
I think we're good to go. All right. So, as I was saying, I think one of the most important things that happens to people as they grow is you may have interests, you may have hobbies, you may have passions, and you know it's easy to say I'm going to follow my passion, and my passion is that I am meant to be an influencer full time and make the millions that everyone speaks about. Let's look at the percentages of people that succeed in that, right? Make sure that whatever you pursue, there is a high chance of you succeeding in it. It may be in athletics. It may be in the creatives. It may be in whatever else that requires extraordinary talent. If you know that you can make it, I recommend you pursue it. However, if at any point you start to figure out that you may not end up in the top 1% that succeeds in some of these more extraordinary talented fields, let's have a backup plan, right? So if you're going to be in the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA, let's make sure you get your degree first, right? Because I think in our industry, in our business world, all those backups tend to come to play after your knees have given up, much later in life, where you now are done and you're looking back and you're like, I was really good at whatever sport, at whatever music, at whatever thing that I was talented in, but I didn't build myself a foundation to then take myself beyond those prime years, right? So, to parents, please allow your children to nurture their talent, whatever it is. Allow them to follow their passions, and please invest time for them to work with professionals to help to discover what they are good at and what they may actually be interested in. This is why when students are ready for in high school, this is why they're encouraged to visit universities, talk to schools, and learn programs, because you never know where your child may end up, right? Of course, there's always that guidance that comes from experience that you have, but I implore all parents, guardians, and older sisters and older brothers, do not force on your children the dreams that you were hoping to have for yourself, right? Allow them to forge their own path, guide them, and if necessary, ask someone else who they may respect to talk to your children, because as you know, the parent-child discussions are never always occurring in a space that the child will always say, "You don't understand," and you as a parent will be like, "I know what I'm talking about." So this is why I say, if you're in the church, if you're in any groups, find someone else that can counsel your child, that may help them, and counsel you actually, that may help you as a unit figure out some next steps that don't necessarily have everyone ending up hating each other. On that note, I'm actually going to talk about the last thing, which is what I do for a living. It's a side hustle. So my passion has now become the construction, the renovation, and the design industry. Don't ask me how I ended up there. It was by mistake, right? So because I cannot afford to make money yet in that industry, it is currently a hobby, and it is currently a side gig passion. Will I explore it? Absolutely. In the meantime, I'll build up my credentials for it. And if you ask me, in the next 5 years, there will be another career change. Who knows? I might actually end up teaching people how to do design, how to do renovations, all of that. But why I tell you this is to just kind of walk with me as you figure out the evolution of my career mindset that still takes and joins along all the skills that I've picked up along the way, to explore new things and to have fun doing it. So don't be stuck to say, if I pick this, I'm stuck with it forever. Things are going to be able to change for you. And when they do, be ready. But don't lose your sense that at the end of the day, jobs are to earn a living. And none of us are winning the lottery in the next 2-3 years. And if you do, please call me. Prove me wrong. I'll share. But unless you're winning the lottery, employment, gainful employment, and this type of thing is what we're looking at in our future. So let's continue to marry economic sense with whatever it is that our passion may be. And I thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. We will pop over to Mr. Chikwana.
Trying to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. So hi, and just to give a warning before I start, there are thunderstorms in Indiana where I am, so if I disappear off video, don't stress out. But my name is Edward Chikwana. I came to the US in 2002 for a PhD in chemistry. So I have a PhD in physical chemistry. And then when one of the things that I was hoping to do was to work in industry. So when I came here, I was like, all the dollars that I could make in industry, I'm going to get a PhD, find a job in industry. And then once I got here, I realized, there's a thing called work permit that you need. There's OPT. And then looking at my path forward, I realized that the path of least resistance for me was to go into academia, because as some of you might know, if you have an OPT, and you're applying for H1, you throw your head into a big lottery, and then if you get picked, you can then get your H1. But if you work for a not-for-profit organization, which includes academic institutions, then you can apply for a job anywhere you want. You can get your H1 anytime you want. So for me, that was the easiest part to make sure I get my work permit. And then I was a professor for 12 years. I taught chemistry. I loved being a professor. But I still remembered my goal of working in industry. So one of the things that I always tell people is I took the scenic route. But one thing that you should do when you take the scenic route is you enjoy the scenery along the way. And so if you decide to go a separate way, make sure whatever you are doing, you do it well, right? And you enjoy it, because that was still 12 years of my life. But I have no regrets. It opened doors. And one of the things that then happened is when I decided to change careers, I looked at my current qualifications, what are the jobs on the market, what are the things that I wanted to do. And I realized that, I loved teaching chemistry, but I did not enjoy working in the lab. So I went back to school and I got a master's in public health. And part of that, I took one class that I enjoyed, and because I was a professor, I developed my own course. And lo and behold, I found a job on LinkedIn that essentially matched what I was teaching. So I applied for this job, and I said, I've been teaching this course for 5 years, so I have 5 years experience. So I actually did get a job based on the experience that I created for myself. But one thing that I learned in that job, and I think Catherine mentioned this as well, is there are some skills that you get along the way that you don't realize you need. So in my current job now, I would say 50% of my job as a scientist is teach. I teach other people what we do in our department. I teach new members of my team. So I'm almost like I'm a professor again, but now I work for an art company as a scientist. So things that I learned along the way. So when I was a professor, when I got to Franklin, there's only one international student. And some of the challenges that the student had was their professors just didn't understand the visa process. So they promised them you get internships like everybody else, you get a job. But when it came time for those things, they didn't materialize because everybody was like, oh, you're an international student. One thing that I did once we started getting students at Franklin is I looked at what are the opportunities that international students could take advantage of. So working on campus. So I encourage all my international students, find a job on campus. The work ethic that you learn working is invaluable. One thing that, in Zimbabwe, we never had the opportunity to do was work while you were students. But here, American high school students work. So by the time they get to college, they already know how to work. They can find jobs during their college years. By the time they look for jobs, they have 8 years of experience. And if you are just a student and that's all you do, then you're going to have 0 years of experience. So you might find somebody who was not as smart as you getting offers because they have more experience. So one thing that you need to do, find a job on campus, find a research project, because one thing that is easy to do is talk to your professors, ask them, can I do a research? If a med student, there are so many things in data science, statistics, that you could create projects in an area that you're passionate about, and then you do a research project, you present it at conferences, but what you get out of that is experience that you can use when you're looking for a job. I also encourage my students to find a job during the summer. Whether you're a first year summer, if you can't find an internship, find any job.
Radio La Famille. Radio La Famille.
La musique.
They were mowing, they were doing all the manual labor, but they were getting paid and they had free accommodation for the summer. And they also networked with just people who were on campus during the summer. So there was nobody else to compete with. You could bump into the president, you chat with them, you could bump into who, if there were visitors who came to campus, you were the only students there, so you got called to all these things. And then the other thing that I also students struggled with was, can I work off campus? Because when I came here, I thought I would have money, but my situation has changed. I can't afford it. So what are my options for working off campus? So you could use your CPT, but your CPT is a 9 months. If you do 9 months of continuous CPT, it turns into OPT. So when you graduate, you've already used a year of OPT. You could also apply for financial hardship. But the downside of that is when you get your visa, you convince the U.S. Embassy that you have funds for you to fund your fees for 4 years. When you apply for financial hardship, they might give you a work permit, but if you ever go back home to try and renew your visa, they might say, oh, by the way, you had said you have money, but now we realize you're working for money. So you are there to work rather than to be a student. So if you do decide to do that, make sure you also consider all the options that are available for you. And then the other thing that I also noticed, I had a lot of very bright students from Zimbabwe who came as pre-med. So, and they were as smart as probably anybody that I'd ever taught. But of all the schools in the U.S., medical schools in the U.S., only a handful accept international students, and for those places for international students are limited. So in my last year, out of all the medical spots available, only 19 were available for international students. So all the international students were competing for 19 spots. And then you got to worry about the money as well, right? If I get in, how do I pay? So I always encourage students, have a plan B, have a plan C, and plan B and plan C should be plans that you also enjoy, because you might always be in plan C for the rest of your life. So your alternative plans should be things that you would also be happy doing. So graduate school is an option. So in the sciences, graduate school is fully paid for, so I never had to pay anything. You get a stipend. So if you're doing a PhD in any of the STEM subjects, you would have to go out of your way to find somewhere where you don't get paid to go to school. So think of grad school as a stepping stone to what you want to do, also as a way for you to stay current in your visa status while you figure out what you want to do. And then lastly, I mentioned if you are looking for a job in industry, realize that if you have a first degree, it's going to be very, very hard. There are people who do get fun jobs as international students with their first degree, but you can count them on one hand. So think about grad school, think about doing a master's program, think about doing a PhD program, because the pool that you compete for visas when you have a graduate degree is different than the pool that you compete for visas when you have an undergraduate degree. So those are just some of the things that I want you to think about as you're thinking of what degree you're doing. There's nothing wrong with doing a philosophy degree, but it's going to be hard for you to get a job with a philosophy degree. Whatever degree that you are doing, make sure you are doing a degree that will help you pay the bills. And I think, like Catherine says, think about your passions, but also think about what can I get a job with? What can I do to pay my bills? So on that note, I think I will stop. Thank you.
Apologies there. My mute was acting funny. We will go ahead and pop on over to our last panelist, Auntie Elizabeth. Please feel free to take the floor and share.
Hey, thank you very much. I was trying to join on my laptop, but it's saying we are at capacity, and I didn't want to disconnect my phone and then get on the laptop. So I won't be able to be on camera, so I apologize for that. Thank you very much, everyone. Happy Sunday, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to share some of the things that I know the topic that I've been asked to talk about is really how we can set goals and be successful in those goals. So I'll just start a little bit by sharing some background around about myself. So I'm originally from Kenya, and I came to the US in 1995. So I may have just aged myself, but that's how long I've been here. And I originally did a degree in hospitality management because I had this grand dream of opening a restaurant and running a hotel. And I just had such a great passion about that. And interesting enough, I've actually never worked in the hotel industry, but I do have a side hustle, which I do catering. So I cater for weddings, events, and stuff like that, and featuring on Kenyan cuisine. So I currently work as a global benefits manager, and my responsibilities in that role entail overseeing the global strategy of delivery of benefits. So for those of you who are employed, you probably have a 401k, you have a pension, you have medical, dental, vision, all of that good stuff. That's what I work with. And it's a field that I feel a lot of people don't explore because most cases people just assume HR is just, you're paper pushing, you're firing people, hiring people, but that's not everything. So there's a lot of good sectors in HR that people can take over and really be successful, and they also pay very well. So let's go to my topic of focus. So I want to talk about setting goals. And this process has actually worked for me. And I just want to encourage everybody to set some goals for themselves while you're going through the process of either identifying a career path, or if you want to change your career path, or if you just want to do something else to either, improve your skills or challenge yourself a little bit more. So the goal is to have SMART goals. When we talk about SMART goals, we're really looking at goals that are specific, measurable, achievable or attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So I'm going to kind of talk slightly about each one, and I almost wish we could be a bit interactive and have people share some of the things they've done in the past. But when we talk about specific goals, we're looking at something that is an action or a thing that you can define. So for instance, I could say something like, I want to gain a computer skill by the end of this year. So I have something, it's specific. I want to gain that computer skill. So with that, I can then decide how I'm going to do that. And by saying I want to gain the computer skill by the end of this year, I've also just added a time bound to it. And if I also say I want to be able to work as a computer, analyst by this time, I've defined, a measurable goal. I've provided specificity, and I've given myself a time bound or a specific time to deliver that particular goal. The other thing is that the goal has to be achievable. When you set realistic goals, you can easily attain them. So don't overexert yourself to something that may become challenging in the process. So I always say it's like eating food. If you're eating sadza, for instance, you don't take the whole plate of sadza and put it in your mouth. You take small bits of sadza and you eat until you're full. So it's just something to that effect. It's simple, but to me, that's a very simple way of understanding that. Something that is relevant is something that is impactful. Is it going to make change for you? And I always say that you will feel the impact when you can actually apply to something and make it useful for yourself. So that's how I look at the relevance of a goal. So just some examples that I had kind of looked at for SMART goals. So I would say, I want to improve my computer programming skills by the end of this year. Or I want to shadow someone who is an expert in the engineering field to gain more exposure and understand exactly how that field works so I can make a decision on whether that's a good field for myself or not. Or I want to work with a job placement office at my college so that I can identify available positions. You're setting goals, you're setting targets, you're setting how you're going to do it. Or I want to save $1 million in 10 years so I can retire. So those are simple goals, but just examples of some of the goals that you can set as you go along. So I would suggest set some goals for yourself and kind of write a plan using the SMART goals approach and just see how that works for you. So I think that's all I have. Thank you so much for your time, guys. And have a great time setting your goals and making things happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our amazing panelists and for your vulnerability to share and also all the wisdom that you shared with us. It's better to talk to someone who's walked the path and made the mistakes and can now help you so that you don't make the same mistakes. I took back a lot of things like, what is your why? What solution are you going to be in the workforce? And there was more shared about the difference between passion, hobby, career, and what you can do and what you can do passion-wise, what you can do to survive, pay the bills. Remember, it's not enough to just have a passion, but is that going to allow you to survive? And more about how in life you take that scenic route. Our professor and scientist, Dr. Chukwana, shared that with us and talked about a lot of things that most international students will face. So I just want to thank you for that. And also thank our last panelist, Auntie Elizabeth, for sharing how you can actually implement SMART goals to help you as you journey along in your life and making these decisions. Before we get into our question and answer, we do have a lot of questions in the chat. Please keep them coming on. I dropped the link for the Google form as well. If you'd like to speak to any of the panelists and get help from them, please feel free to use that Google form. I will give this brief time before we go into Q&A to Pastor Rebecca.
I think, it's okay. Let's just move on with the program. Because of time, I think there are too many questions. I don't want to interrupt the flow. Go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. We'll go ahead with our first question. This one comes from an MBA student. He says, "Hi, I'm an MBA student here in Cambridge, and I'm finding it hard to get an internship, which is supposed to start in May. Is this normal, or what advice would you give? By the way, I am graduating in August this year." That's our first question. Would any of our panelists like to grab that one?
I can offer some words of advice. So if you're graduating in August, your school should try by all means to make sure you get an internship, because the way I understand some programs, internship might be required for you to graduate. So if it is required to graduate, you go to your school and let them know. What might happen, or what you might have to do, is be willing to do an internship where you don't get paid, because those might be easier than finding somebody who's willing to pay you, especially this late. So, for example, I every year I take an intern, and for our company, we start taking interns in November. So by December, we have filled in all our positions. So if you're still applying now, there are actually fewer positions to apply for. So you might have to be creative on how you can do your internship. The other thing that you could do is you could create your internship and then offer that as a service to a non-profit and say, these are my skills. I could do this kind of project for you, but be prepared to do it for free so that you can graduate if you can't find a paid job.
Thank you so much for that advice. And again, please make sure that you are muted so that we can hear answers to pressing questions that people have. And we will continue with questions that we had in the chat. And once we are done with those, I will let you know, and we can use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to raise your hand and ask a question. Again, if not, feel free to inbox myself. Feel free to inbox anyone who has a co-host title after their name, Piola and Nash. You can privately inbox them. And again, we do have a Google form that you can put in your questions. The next question, yes.
Bridget, can I just quickly add to what Dr. Chikwana just mentioned?
Absolutely, please.
Students, please make sure you are completely filled out on LinkedIn. Make sure you're following companies that you would like to intern in. Make sure you are identifying, other internationals that work for those entities so that you can reach out to them in their inboxes. So I just wanted to make sure that the journey of internship is not as easy. You have to really be creative in following other international successes that are sitting in those companies by following them on LinkedIn and just making yourself, a party to what they share in their success. So that's my addition to what Dr. Chikwana just mentioned.
Thank you so much, Auntie Aleta, for that. And for those that were also asking the same question around internships, I think this response from Auntie Aleta will help you on that. Make sure that your LinkedIn is filled up. And there was a question about major difference about passions, hobby, and career, but I think that was answered. But I could open this up to our panelists to just talk a little bit about it as well.
I can speak to it since I had mentioned it initially. I think the biggest thing is understanding that not every passion has to be a career. It can be a passion, but you exercise it as a hobby, or you can be privileged and lucky enough to have a passion that you can turn into a career. So I think just understanding that there are many ways that you can experience these things that you're passionate for that don't necessarily have to be a career, and you don't have to necessarily follow it as your job.
Thank you so much.
Bridget, can we ask some of them, my team, chip in the other people who are not on the panel, but we have a team of about 12 people there in the navigation group. Please chip in, support, and help the students with questions. You can also respond in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor. I'm going to read this question. Hello, I am concerned about my age. I'm 42. Is it wise to start from scratch? I'm an ECD teacher, but I am no longer passionate about it. At the moment, I'm a caregiver. I came here recently.
So I'll mention something. I don't think age should ever be a limiting factor. In fact, if anything, it should motivate you because you're more mature, you're more responsible, and it's easier to navigate life when you kind of know what you need to get into. So I would suggest, don't give up on yourself. I think, and you're not starting from scratch because I'm assuming you've done something, even though you've come to the US recently. It doesn't mean that you cannot start from somewhere. Most importantly, identify a goal and start setting those small goals for yourself. And you may want to get somebody who can mentor you one on one. I think that would also be a good way. Maybe somebody who's been here for some time that can kind of help guide you through this journey, just to give you the ability to feel empowered to make some of those decisions that may seem challenging at this time. I wish you all the best, and feel free to reach out if it's something that personally I can help with as well.
Good evening. If I may also add on that, I'm one of in the group. My name is Titich Corey. I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. I just want to answer that question in particular. I'm an example of somebody who came to America and started nursing at the age of 43. That's when I started going to the university here at age 43. And if I tell you what I have accomplished, because I knew what I wanted and I set my goals, and as soon as I graduated, I knew where I wanted to work. I came as an F1 student. So after my graduation, I knew because of my age, I was not going to wait and look for a job where I will start accumulating pension, everything. I knew I wanted to do travel nurse. So as soon as I graduated, I worked for only 3 years at a hospital, gaining experience, and I hit the road. I never stopped up to now. And if I tell you now, I'm ready.
Sorry, Auntie, you've been accidentally muted here.
I'm sorry. I don't even know what. But all I can say is God has been good. Whatever I set my goals on, I have achieved it, and I'm more than happy to retire now. I'm ready. I can retire anytime. But because of my experience in my travel nursing and what I'm doing, it's like, I can retire anytime and I can stay. No pressure at all. That's so age is not a limit. If you know what you want to do and you have people who help you, I had mentors who walked with me the walk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There is a similar question around age, and I'm just going to try to ask those because it's in the same lines. Hi, I'm 45 years and on green card. I have a higher diploma in accounting and a postgraduate diploma in marketing, and I am currently a Green Belt Six Sigma holder, all foreign qualifications. I intend to go back to college to attain a degree all the way to PhD, part-time. Is digital marketing a good career? What are my options at 45 years? I'm currently a CDL Class A truck driver, and my line of interest is entrepreneurship. That one was quite a loaded one. If the panelists would like me to ask it again, I can go ahead and ask it. Hi, I'm 45 years. Okay. You got it?
Yes, I think just to add to what Titi was saying, I don't think age should come in. So I changed careers when I was 42. So I think if you have qualifications from outside the US, it doesn't matter where. That path is challenging regardless of who you are or how old you are. But if your qualifications are from the US, then you might just want to try and see if you could get experience in a US-based company, not necessarily doing what you want to do, but doing something that is close enough, and then try to slowly move towards the goal. And sometimes you can find jobs that you qualify for at a company that does digital marketing, and then you apply for those jobs, and then once you're inside the company, usually it's so much easier for you to move. Because if you show them that you're good at the job that you're currently doing, there's a high chance that they will also be willing to take a chance, giving you something that you have not yet done before.
Thank you so much for that. Um, and here, I think there's a question around CNA, which was answered in the chat. I did not see a response, however, to a question which is around switching majors. We are lacking courage to switch majors. Will it affect me, especially the first year?
Can I jump into that one, Bridget? Because that was exactly what I ended up having to do when I came in 1983, and I found myself, to Dr. Makai's expression earlier, I could not do physical therapy. I could not do whirlpool. I spent 2 years trying to become a physical therapist, and I had to change my major. It is safe to change a major because all you have to identify is what is in demand, right? What is in demand that will safely land you into something that you can problem solve, and someone will hire you, and there's a shortage in this country, right? And so creating that understanding is what we need. Changing a major is not a bad thing, but you have to play safe and make sure that whatever you change it to is going to, again, allow you to connect to the workforce, whether it's OPT, internship, and whatever it is. So it's not uncommon. Please change your major if you don't like what you're doing.
And then from a former professor's perspective, before you change your major, please check with your school. If you are a freshman, it's usually simple, but you have to look at the requirements for the major that you want to change into and the courses that you have taken. If a lot of those transfer, you will probably not have any problems changing your major as a freshman or as a sophomore. Anything beyond the sophomore, if you are going south to a major that is totally different, you might want to also just be prepared to either pay for an extra semester or an extra year. But those are all things that you can talk about with your advisor before you change your major.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and have questions from people who are raising their hands. There is one question about what jobs would you say are on demand in Nevada and US as a whole, and there's a PDF that Catherine has shared with us in the chat that should answer the question. For now, we have a couple of minutes that we can open up to people if you want to unmute and raise your hand to ask questions. I have Kambasha here. Please feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, so I had an answer for the question that somebody asked about. They are a CDL holder, and they're looking to get into entrepreneurship. I was thinking there is a lot of opportunity within transportation and logistics. You already hold a CDL in that, and again, you're an accountant, which means that you're really somewhere there within your business. Is logistics something that you don't like doing? Because there's so many opportunities in there, and probably one of the easiest businesses to get financed in, especially at this moment.
Thank you so much, Kambacha. And please, as we're joining, could we be mindful to mute our phones? We have Major's iPhone. I'm unable to mute you. Please mute yourself. I don't see any raised hands right now. And I don't have any questions in my chat. Here, actually, what are the most common mistakes international students make when applying for OPT jobs?
I can speak to some of this. So one of the things that
I've seen in my mentors mentees experiences is that everyone wants to work for Facebook, everyone wants to work for Google, everyone wants to work for these top 50 Forbes companies. And although it is a noble quest, just remember that most of those schools actually go recruiting and they go looking at specific universities for their talent. So my recommendation is that when you are looking for an internship, look for jobs and for programs that actually can teach and expand your specific skill set. Even if it's a local university, I mean, if it's a local company in your city or your town, if, for example, you're an accountant and there's a small accounting office that exists maybe 20 minutes away, and you know that there's an opportunity for you to actually be fully immersed in the entire accounting operation, then I would say that is a better internship for you than one where you will actually only be, the company so big that you only learn one thing. So be very open-minded in what you target, and don't hesitate to go directly to these companies and knock on doors and ask them for the opportunities to intern with them, especially because that is where all of these small companies are always looking for someone to bring in and some help, and I think it'll be a really good opportunity.
Also related to that, and I was about to type that. So I work for a large international company, and I can tell you that we do not sponsor visas for somebody with a first degree. So most companies that could potentially sponsor you, if you have a higher degree, you have a higher chance of convincing them that you are the only person who can do what they want, so they'll sponsor you. And then, the companies that do sponsor for first degrees, then everyone is applying. And one thing that employers are required to do when they hire an international is to prove that every American who applied for that job was less qualified than the international that you're hiring. If you're straight out of undergrad with your 4.0 GPA, it will be harder for the company to prove that all the other 4.0 GPA Americans who applied were not as qualified as you. Then with the current administration, we are seeing, even for our graduate level employees, we are seeing a lot more pushback when you apply for visas. So for the next 4 years, it is going to be the wild, wild west. So I don't know what's going to happen. So if you can go to grad school and wait this administration out, that might be a very viable option for now, if that's possible.
Thank you. And with just a couple of minutes left, there was a question about a math teacher who's been studying math for 11 years. I believe Dr. Chikwana got to that. If you feel you have not been helped, feel free to inbox me and I will connect you with one of the panelists and other people to help you. I have a question here. I will do 3 more questions that I have here. For elementary teachers, what is in demand? I am about to study STEM K through to 8, sorry. And I think, Dr. Chikwana, you spoke to it. If you want to speak a little bit more. And then, if not, I can go on to the next question.
I think unless the question is more follow-up questions, I think.
Okay, perfect. The next question that I have here says that I came to US on a non-academic route and I want to embark on academics. Sorry, my mouse is just acting funny here. I just have to put in so I can scroll down. My apologies. Oh, okay. Sorry. Uh, my computer is acting up. Here we go.
Can someone help you, Bridget?
Yeah.
Piola, Cedrin, Nash, anyone who's there?
Okay.
No?
I lost my question that came to me directly here about a non-academic route.
It's a direct question to her because we don't have it in the chat.
Dipiola, would you mind asking the other question so I can get to the direct question?
So the one I'm seeing right now, it says, are there legal ways for international students to gain experience outside of OPT or internships?
You can work on the CPT. So CPT is like OPT, but you do it before you graduate. So it's curriculum practical training. So you can work on campus using CPT. You can work off campus using CPT. You can also do research. So research gives you a lot of experience, and a lot of professors do research depending on the school that you are. So that's usually an easier one that's easily accessible to gain experience doing that. Or if you're an account major, you can just go to the accounting department at your university and then just ask them if they need somebody to do any project that they do not have time to do themselves, and then offer your services that way.
I think you mentioned earlier on in your conversation volunteering. Let's not forget that. Because when all else fails, if you're not going to get any paying internship, you can volunteer.
Okay. I have a question here. What happens when your F1 visa expires soon after you start OPT?
I can take some of that, but I think it depends on what they're asking. So
yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, you are eligible. You are still within status for as long as you followed the process and actually applied for your OPT. So although the date stamped on your visa may be in the past, but for as long as you are within status and have been granted your OPT, you are not necessarily illegal. What it means though is when you leave the country, or if you leave the country, you will need to apply for a new visa to be able to get back in the country. But you are still, if you stay in the country, you're within your rights, as we call it, you're still legal.
But let's be real though. I want to add something to that. Common sense today, in the way things are going, I would not leave the country if I'm sitting in that space. Just, so it may have worked many years ago, but today would not be the day to experiment with something that fragile. That's just my candid. Let's not do that.
Thank you so much. Sir, go ahead.
Yes, there's a direct question that came to me, and the question says, what kind of things should I look for when? Let me see what the question says. What kind of things should I look for when looking for a company to sponsor me so that I can avoid being stuck in a workplace because I have to?
To save time, I will look to see if the company has experience with international students. Do they have immigrants that are in their different branches that they have had experiences with? And if you are the first one, that means you are having to educate them on the whole process of being an H-1B student, right? So if there are others, then that might make it a little easier for you to navigate because they have experienced other students coming through.
Hi, my name is Charles. There are advantages of being the only um, H-1B visa holder in an organization sometimes. The point I'm trying to make is any circumstances that one is in, there are advantages and disadvantages, like all the panelists were trying to highlight, everyone came in a different path. The advantages of that, I was in a similar situation many years ago, is you can research and give them direction of how things go, and they'll take advice from you because they don't know. You can manipulate the system, so to speak, for lack of a better word, and give and have things go your way because you're the only one in that circumstances, and they'll listen to you. So just because you're the only one does not mean necessarily it's a disadvantage. It can be an advantage. But like she said as well, if you look for organizations where they are familiar with it, you also don't have to do a whole lot of work on your side. It's easier. So any circumstance that you're in, you'll be okay. And 42 career-wise is not old. Like Charles, I don't know if you remember me from many, many years ago. Um, like she said, you're long, if you retire at 70, you've got almost 30 years to work from 42. So 42 career-wise, that low, is not that old. It's unfortunate that when we come from Africa, Baba Yama at 42 years seen as very old. But if you move to America, it's a completely different game. But be passionate about what you're trying to do because remember, there are people coming in the workforce at 22, 24 that are also hungry as you. So you got to have an edge on them. You're not younger, but you've got more experience, you're more mature. So use those things to your advantage. But 42 is not that old at all career-wise. Thank you.
Thank you. And in the interest of time, I was cut off as I was trying to ask one last question. There are other questions in the chat, and I will take these questions and save them. At the end, I'm not at the end. Soon after, I'm going to send also the link for Google Form. If you have any burning questions that you didn't get answered, please feel free to send them in there, and then we can get one of the panelists and the other people who can help you with guidance. So for our last question, before we get into our next segment, which is lived experiences, this is the last question we'll ask. If someone came to the U.S. through a visitor's visa, how easy is it to change to F1?
So my comment might not be valid in the current administration, but prior to this administration, if you came as a visitor and then you applied for school and you got admitted into that school, they would then give you an I-20. There was a process for them to change your visitor visa into an F1 visa without you having to go out. But the process now, I think you just have to go out somewhere, anywhere where they can apply for a visa. But with the way things are, you most likely have to go back home and then apply for and have the visa approved when you go at the embassy. And I don't know whether they will do that. But on paper, you should be able to do that. But I think, like Tete Alita said, these days there's no guarantee that they will approve. But it should be there's an actual process for you to change that theoretically.
Thank you so much to our panelists and everybody who pitched in to answer burning questions that were out there. Again, I just dropped the link to the Google form. If we were not able to get to your question or you have questions after this event and you're like, oh, I should have asked this question, please feel free to use this Google form to put in your questions. You will be connected with someone who can help you with that question and any other help that you have. And right now, let us get into our next segment where we can hear from young people who have experience pivoting or uh, navigating this area of life of what to do in your career and the like, we have three amazing people who are going to share with us their lived experiences. We have Matida Makwani, Michelle Makai, and Munyarazi Choga, who will share with us. And please, let's do 5 minutes each as we share our lived experiences. Before we do that, Pastor, do you want to introduce them, or should we just go ahead and hand it over to them?
Oh, thanks, Dee. I don't want to again mess up with the flow, but I just want to say experiences are helpful because these are some of you students who have walked the road and what their experiences were. So we will have like what she explained. I'm excited about Koma Mnyarazi Choga because he actually has his organization now that is helping students. He will say it in his address. So go ahead, Matilda and Michelle, then Mr. Choga.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Matida. I am excited to be here because when Pastor Makai asked me to talk about switching career paths, I was like, oh, I know a lot about that. I can talk on that. So I just wanted to start off by saying I thought it was really, really appropriate. The first panelist said, you are not an accident. And then the second panelist said, give yourself some grace. And the third panelist kind of echoed those same sentiments. And I think that that is really important when you're trying to decide if it's time to switch. But I think the most important person to consult whenever you're trying to do that is God. And because if you're trying to embark on a journey of figuring out who you are, you need to understand your creator because he created you for a very specific purpose. So like I said, you're not an accident. You were designed to do something very specific. And it's easy to look at successful people, especially those of us in the U.S., trying to aspire to be some celebrity or trying to aspire to be some super smart person. Trying to aspire to be anybody but who God created you to be is a mistake. So consult your Father in heaven with all the things that you want to do in life, including the changes that you want to make no matter how old you are. That would be my first piece of advice. I want to talk about my own personal journey. I started college as a nursing major, so that seems to be a common theme on this platform. And I graduated college with a business and finance degree with an emphasis in real estate. So for me, when I first started college, I chose my major because, like most of you have said, it seemed to be the easiest choice based on what I was capable of doing and what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people. So that was my reasoning behind choosing nursing. I knew that I wanted to help, and I knew that nurses help. I didn't think I was smart enough to be a doctor. I didn't think I could go through the lots and lots of school it takes to be a doctor. I struggled in elementary, middle, and high school to focus in class. So it was never easy to get through school. So I'm speaking really to the people who are like myself. If you're not an academic, if school has been a challenge, that doesn't mean that it's not for you, and that doesn't mean that you can't learn. So that would be my first piece of advice. Why did I change? Well, the pandemic. So I was in college during the 2020 COVID pandemic. And so that really kind of like shook my perspective, and they were telling me I was supposed to be a frontline worker. Everyone else was going to be at home, but I was supposed to be I got scared. I'm not going to lie. So I said, I can't do this. I need to take something else. And even though my advisors, my teachers, everyone was telling me, no, Matita, this is a bad idea. Stick to what you're doing. Just finish what you started. Like, I'm sorry, guys, we can't do this. And so against all odds, even though it took me a whole extra year of schooling, I changed my major and I graduated, and now I do what I like to do. I work in finance, I work at a bank, I work with trusts and investments, and I just love it. I think it's so entertaining. I think I found a passion that while I was still a nursing major was actually a hobby. I learned how to trade, I learned how to invest, and so I turned that hobby into my career. And so it just goes to show, I think that's something that Catherine also touched on. She talked about how not everything has to be a career. Some things can be hobbies. So just remember that when you're trying to figure out what it is you want to do. That some things are hobbies and some things are careers. So for me personally, I got to the point where I was like, okay, I've learned enough and I can see this being a career. I have enough time left in my program that I can change. That's not always the case. So I think, like the professor said, make sure you talk to an advisor, professor. If they're telling you no, you really have to have a very convincing plan to figure out a path forward. Make sure your credits line up. Make sure that all works out. And I know some people had questions about how to make sure that their visa, or maybe their not even their visa requires it, but like their actual degree program requires an internship. Create one. Find somebody that you really want to be and ask them how you can be of service. Like, write up a prompt. ChatGPT AI will do a great job. Say, hey, I'm looking at this person. I want to work for them. This is the experience I have. What can I offer them? And so just ask ChatGPT a question like that and see if it can write you up a couple of options. Look for some companies with people who you want to be one day and go and ask them, can I work for you? If they say not for money, but for free, and there's nobody else willing to pay, that might be what you have to do at first. But don't be afraid to ask to create positions. That's actually something I did while I was transitioning because I didn't have any experience in the business world and all my experience was in nursing. So making that transition, I had to create opportunities for myself because there was nobody to show me because I missed those opportunities early in the program. But that's it. I'll go ahead and give it back to Michelle to share her story as well.
Thank you, Matida. And also thank you, Pastor Makai, for this opportunity to just share my journey. Pastor Makai is my mom. I was born and raised in Zimbabwe, and I moved here in 2015. I came here with my parents, so my journey is not like international students, similar to an international student. But I feel like it's similar to Matida. But anyway, just a little backstory. I did 2 years in Zimbabwe, 2 years of high school in Zimbabwe, and just going to school in Zimbabwe, your grades is what dictates, what you're going to do in the future. And so for me, I don't know if it's different now, but the school that I went to in Mutare, that's how it was. So I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I always knew that I want to get into the sciences. So whenever I was studying, I always aimed to get into either the high science or the lower science, but I knew I just wanted to get into the sciences. So fast forward, I moved to the United States. I moved here. I was supposed to be Form 3 in Zimbabwe, but I ended up being here. So junior year is when I figured, let me do nursing. But it wasn't a passion of mine. Everybody around me was doing nursing. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go and be a nurse. So to get into the program, you need nursing hours. So I went and worked as a CNA, and I was just like, this is not for me. It was a little too much. So I was like, okay, I still want to be in the health field. So what should I do? So I then went ahead and I did. I was like, okay, so let me do medicine, because I still wanted to be in the health field, but I didn't, I think I was still trying to find my way. So I was like, okay, I will do medicine. So, then I did a little bit of research, I shadowed some doctors and, just seeing their journey and just hearing about their journey. It was, for me, it was a little too much as well, just investing all that time in school, all the debt. So for me, I was like, okay, maybe let me be a PA. But while I was doing all of this, I was a biology major. So at the end of college, I talked to my academic advisor, and she was like, you know what? I know you want to be in the health field and you don't really have to decide what you want to do right now. But just take a year off from school and just decide what you want to do. So after I graduated, everybody just kept talking about IT and how the IT was growing. And I thought it was a ridiculous suggestion to do IT because for me, I always wanted to be in the health field. So, I just was like, you know what? It doesn't hurt. Even my mom brought it up. She's like, oh, how about you try cybersecurity? And after like working in the health field for like a couple of years, I worked in the lab. I moved around like because I worked at Mayo, and then I worked at I worked at Alina, and I was like, I don't like this. So I did a little research about like cybersecurity, and like just I even went to like what people do like in cybersecurity, like just how broad the field was. And I was like, okay, this is not a passion, but this is something I can definitely do. So I ended up going back to school, and I did my master's in cybersecurity. But I was still like flirting with like the health field and IT. So I ended up still working for like the health field, but still like in IT. And, my advisor and also like Matita's mom is one of my mentors. And, she kept telling me like, you know what, you can still like fuse, IT and health together and like still find a path, like find your path that you want to go to. So right now, I'm currently working for the county. It's IT consulting, but I'm also contracted under a small like health company, so which is nice because I still get to be in health and also be in IT. So that's just been my journey. And even like when I started working for the county, like it wasn't even anything that I went to school for. Like I just applied for the job, and I had told them like what my goals were, and somebody just put a word in for me, and they were like, okay, yeah, we'll give you this job. So even the job that I'm doing, like it's I just started this job, and like, I'm still like doing meetings with them and like talking to them about like what I'm interested in. I think it was, I don't remember. I think it was Dr. Edward who said something about like getting into a company, even if it has nothing to do with what you're doing. And that's exactly what I did. Like I just got into the company, like it had nothing to do with my job. And I still sit down and have meetings with them and tell them like to train me in certain things because like I know where I want to go, and I know what I want to do. And then in terms of like passion, like I said, like that is not my passion. And I also found out that like health wasn't really my passion. It's just something that I wanted to do because like Matita said, like I really do enjoy helping people. So I feel like I relate to that. So for me, passion wise, I would say like, it's like I'm more like business minded. I'm more like into like anything creative. Like I'm really like into art. So anything that will lead me to that direction, that is my passion. But that's something that I'm doing on the side. That's not something that I'm doing full time. Because for me, education is a backup plan, and that's just like what my parents always taught me. Like I saw somebody said something about like going back to school and like being older, and I saw my mom go back to school like in her 50s and get her doctorate degree. So like time has nothing to do with like if you want to do something, just go and do it. Auntie Titi talked about that as well. She's another person that is like one of the people that encourage me so much. So like time, honestly, for me, I didn't look at that, and I'm still looking at myself right now, and one day wanting to also be my own, like a business owner and like doing something, because I don't have a desire to like being corporate forever. I don't have a desire in like climbing the corporate ladder. Like I'm just here and I will do it, just to do it. Cause like I said, education is a backup plan, but that is not my desire. It's never too late. So for me, I would say like the little nuggets I can leave with you guys is like, do your research. If you want to like switch careers, just go on YouTube. Like people post all the time about like the things that they do. If you want to be an engineer, like working for like a medical device company, like go and check like what will that look like for you working in that like in that field. Like what is that going to look like for you, like on a day-to-day basis. Again, I talked about time, like it's never too late. And also like having mentors. Like I have people in my life that like mentor me, like people that I can like call and like talk to, and like they kind of lead me in the right direction. So those are the little nuggets I'll leave with you guys. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Matita. Ma'am Yara, are you on the call? Please feel free to share your lived experience.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Just sound check.
We do.
Cool. All right. Hey, everyone. I guess by way of introductions, Munyarazi Choga here, and I think it's hard to be the last one to speak after a lot of folks have shared their nuggets. So I think part of it is just I'll give my personal journey and then share some of the work that we're doing at Career Pals. So I came to the U.S. in 2008 to study computer science and economics.
If they can see my face or not.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So I was saying that I came to the United States in 2008. I guess when our country was going through, the difficult challenges that we were facing economically at that time. But in college, I studied computer science and economics. And for me, right, the challenge that I'd always faced as a kid was having to decide, should I go business or should I go computer science? I was really passionate about business and had an interest in computer science, right? And part of that story for me is a journey of mentorship, right? Professors, friends discussing issues as we're going through college. My first internship that I got, I think, helped me to make that decision on which path to take. I would get interviews, right, to join the JP Morgans for investment banking. But in my junior year, I got invited for an interview, for a computer science interview at Goldman Sachs. So this was in financial services, a place that I wanted to work as a banker, but I was getting invited to come in for an interview that wasn't in line with something that I was necessarily saying was my first choice. But with that, I found people who then spoke life into my story. I went in for that interview. I think the interview that I went for was in my sophomore year. Completely bombed the interview because I wasn't prepared for the discussion or for the interview that I was going into. But this gentleman mentored me enough, right? Took me under his wing, coached me so that I could come back again in my junior year, in which case I ended up landing an internship, and then that's how I launched my career. So in my journey, I've worked, started off as a software engineer, worked for about 4 years in financial services. But again, as I was going through that journey, right, I started to realize that, hey, I want to be able to help out my family back home. How can I do that? And so part of it was to get that empowerment, which was sorting out my immigration situation. So I started looking for jobs that could sponsor for my green card, not necessarily the H-1B side of things, which was much easier to get back in the day, but primarily to be able to get my green card and to be able to support my family. And so the next job that I actually got, it was a smaller company, right, that would allow me to then really do a lot of things, gain a lot of skills. But as part of that, I think most people want to just look at the big companies and overlook the smaller ones that could be able to support you immigration-wise. With that, I moved around from software engineering, technology consulting, and right now I'm working as a technical program manager at Microsoft, primarily driving a lot of their go-to-market motions. So that's kind of my day job. And I tend to tell people that my unpaid side gig is running Career Pals, which is a 501c3 based out in Pennsylvania. And we primarily focus on helping out international students to somewhat like have the very same conversations that we're having, right? So international students and immigrant job seekers who are really trying to navigate and understand where do you find the opportunities and how do you find them. So in a nutshell, it's really thinking about the questions that you are having as you're trying to decide to go left or right. Also be thinking about the immigration strategy, right? Are you looking to stay in the U.S. long term, or at some point are you looking to move to a different country? Because the answers to those questions would then help you on which way to go in your career. And so a lot of the coaching that we provide is really to just have conversations to say, hey, what's your plan and how do you want, like, what do you think your goal is right now? And how can we help you to move forward? Because a lot of the times, I think we tend to get bogged down in just talking about the career, but it's also important to understand the rules of the game. So what is the current immigration climate like in the U.S. and how does it affect the options that you have? And so with that, I think I know we have a part to talk Q&A, and so we can go into more questions if folks have that. In the interest of time, I'll kick it over to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Yarazi there. As we're preparing to get into our second round of Q&A, again, the chat is open, and you can use the raise your hand feature. But before we get into the Q&A right now, we've been on this call for almost 2 hours now. So I just want us to do a quick stretch. If you want to join me, we're going to do a stretch that's called chicken banana. So when you're doing the chicken banana, you take your hands like this and you pretend to be a chicken. It's the first one. And then that's stretching your shoulders and all that. And then you're going to do a banana where you stretch to the side, stretch to the other side. So chicken, banana, chicken, banana. Thank you, Michelle, for joining me in doing the chicken banana. Chicken, banana. Make you feel better. Right. Let's jump into our second round.
Radio La Famille.
La musique clignote.
The first Q&A, I think, for Career Power, someone wanted you to repeat your company name and also share your details. For that, if you want to drop them in the chat for us, that'll be great.
Yeah, I think I'll drop that in the chat because otherwise I'll be on my phone trying to copy and paste information over. So yes, the name of the organization is Career Pals with a Z. So career as in CAREERPALZ. But I'll drop the details in the chat. And with that, right, it's almost like we support like not just Zimbabwean students, so working with international students from all over the world. And part of it, I think, is understanding that, you have different options that are available to you. And so our coaching is pretty much centered on delivering experiences that are directed towards you. So we're building a lot of tools and resources that you can use self-serve, as well as kind of getting on a call one-on-one and talking through options. So I'll drop more information in the chat.
Thank you so much. I think this question is related to Michelle's experience. Is it easy to switch into cybersecurity if you were doing teaching? I've always wanted to. Also, can I connect with you, Michelle, for the questions that I have?
Yes, you can connect with me. You can send me a direct message, maybe with your contact, and then we can connect after this. But that's what I thought too. I thought it was not going to be easy because I didn't have any experience. But you don't need. Okay, so what you actually need is you need a little bit of like experience to get into the field. You don't need to have like a background in IT to do like a master's in cybersecurity or like a certification in cybersecurity. So that part you can do without any experience. Now the part which is something that I wish I knew before getting into IT is the experience. So if you can like maybe do a little coding, like there's so much information on YouTube, on Google, like, there's books that you can get on Amazon, to study like whatever like field that you want, because cybersecurity is very broad. So, to begin with, you need to figure out like what route you want to take, because it's kind of like being a doctor. Like what kind of doctor do you want to do? Like it's such a broad field. But yes, you do need to learn, like you need to learn to code. You need to like have a little bit of experience. Like because they're going to look at that. Like, have you worked with, like with phones? Have you worked with like computers? Like, do you know how to fix a computer? So stuff like that. But yes, definitely if you have like any other questions, you can definitely inbox me.
Thank you so much. And again, I'll drop that Google form that you can put your details in, and just include in there who of the panelists or the people with the lived experiences who have shared here you'd want to get contact information on. You can use that Google form on that I will send again in the chat. And we're taking questions right now, so feel free to use the raise your hand feature or drop questions in the chat. If you want to remain anonymous, you can send them directly to myself or any of the people who are co-hosts on this call. Nash is a co-host. Piola Rimal Jeans is a co-host over there. There are a couple of questions around switching from F1 to seeking asylum, which I think have been answered there. But if you feel like you need more clarity, again, I'll send in that Google form. I see our scientist, Dr. Edward Chikwana. If you've got your hands up, please feel free.
Actually, the question for the career pause, can you give an example of an actual, because I think when you say we help students international, can you give like a situation so that some of the international students know exactly what kind of help
they can get?
Are you talking about? Yeah.
Cool. And thank you for contextualizing that. So if you are depending on where you are in your college career, right? Freshman and sophomore years face different kind of challenges, which is, hey, how can I leverage my CPT to gain the experience that I'll need post-graduation? Juniors and seniors tend to be thinking about life after college, right? And so I think a lot of those conversations are really geared towards, if someone hasn't had that internship experience, what are some of the strategies and things that they can do to prepare for life after college? For the seniors, I think that challenge really comes down to, I'm graduating. So unfortunately, a lot of the people that we're working with are panicking because they have spent most of their time in college not quite investing time in the areas that they should be in. And so they are really concerned about, hey, I have a 90-day clock that's coming after I graduate, right? Like, so what do I need to do for me to do that, for me to sort of like overcome those circumstances? But in a nutshell, right, it's there to prepare folks to be able to launch and grow their careers in a sustainable way. In most cases, it's really talking about what are the options that are available to you immigration-wise, right? I think some of the folks here were talking about CPT and OPT and H-1B, right? But then there's a whole host of visas, I think, that folks don't know about. I think Mr. Chikwana spoke about the H-1B cap exempt path, right? But these are just some of the things that are out there. But I think part of it, I can summarize it and say Career Pals will help you to learn the rules of the game from an immigration standpoint, to be able to understand, hey, which paths can I follow, right? For the master's students, you kind of have different options that are available to you as well. And it's really just about teaching what options are available. And then folks can then leverage that to navigate really on the career side, right? It's then, hey, I want to be an engineer, or I want to be a teacher, or I want to be whatever I want to be. Obviously, we do advise folks to think about the jobs of the future. I think Antialita mentioned earlier, right? Thinking about the needs of the country and then positioning yourself with that. So part of it is more career conversations or career support to help you to go through the journey. I don't know if that helps provide context.
I sure think it does. Go ahead, sir. Did I cut you off?
Oh, no. And I was saying that I think I put together the information and I'll post that in the chat as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I do have a question here that reads, I am doing an MBA in STEM finance in Boston, graduating in August this year. From your USA experience, which states can I target for my OPT? Also, may you please assist if you have connections with any companies or organizations that are recruiting. I am willing to relocate. So which states can I target for my OPT for STEM finance?
Yeah, so I think I'll answer that since I have like some experience in finance, right? I think in the US, there's generally like big kind of financial hubs. So the first being New York. Another big one is Chicago, right? But I would also encourage you to think or expand just outside of the financial services industry, because the tech industry also can leverage financial skills. But then obviously right now the tech industry is going through an interesting phase. So you can be looking at, the hubs, New York, Chicago, but also consider the tech companies. But in addition to that, I'll kind of stretch it and say, and that's one thing I think we've been advising a lot of the students is don't just look at the big companies, because right now these large companies are firing people, right? So that's also going to impact your options as you're navigating your job search. So I'll definitely encourage you to even consider there's startups and mid-sized companies. I got my green card at a mid-sized company, right? And so consider narrowing your search down. And again, there's like tools and data out there, right, that we can share to help you do that research. So I'll say do your homework first. I'll be happy to share a list. I think there's a company called Alma that's based out of San Francisco that put together a list of like 1,000 startups. So as a start, I think I'll share that. But then in addition to that, there's tools and resources that you can use to sort of like narrow down on options.
Thank you, Auntie Aletta.
And just add one more point to what so for especially if you're an undergrad and you're thinking of applying for a job for OPT, I always encourage you to also apply for grad school. Get into a grad school, have that as a solid plan B, so that if you don't get the job and your OPT is expiring, you then have grad school. Because if you start to now apply for grad school, once you have found out that you can't get a job, then you run out of time for you to be in country, get accepted, get a new I-20. So always have that as a backup, solid backup plan.
Thank you so much for chiming in there. Auntie Aletta, do you want to share?
So I just want to share a very broad workforce development understanding of each of your majors, right? You are in finance. Can you think of any company that does not have a finance department of the Fortune 500? Not one, right? So if you are a finance major and looking to intern in a finance department, consider every entity your opportunity. I worked for McDonald's. They have cybersecurity. They have finance because the franchisees have to finance their equipment and such. They have marketing. McDonald's is the biggest marketer on earth. And so I want you guys to think about each of your fields as existing in many of the Fortune 500 companies. Don't limit yourself to the EYs that you hear about. Oh, I'm accounting, so therefore it's EY, KPMG, and no, it's McDonald's, it's Wendy's, it's many of those entities that you don't think of as an opportunity for yourself. So please widen your understanding of what entities in the United States do. Every entity has a cybersecurity department nowadays. All of them, right? So please widen it up. It's everyone that could hire you because you all are doing some amazing degrees.
Thank you so much for that. And those who are requesting more contact information for Career Pulse, they've just been dropped in the chat there. So feel free to connect. The next question that I have here is, I am doing volunteer work, being an assistant client care manager. Can I include the experience I am gaining when I am applying for jobs like on-campus jobs? I am in my second semester master's degree.
I can start off by saying like all experience matters, right? So whether it's volunteer work or paid work, right? It's still work. And I know that a lot of people end up having like different experiences, right? So I think it's in part tailoring that experience to the job that you're applying for, right? At the end of the day, all employers are interested in someone who's going to get the job done. And so whether you got the experience, whether you're volunteering or paid, I think is not the issue. I think it's about how you package and sell it.
Anyone else from the panel who wants to add on to this? Otherwise, we can move on to the next question. Okay, here. Janice, do you have a question? Okay.
No, I just joined the chat. Sorry.
All right, no worries.
So what? So I wanted to add. So one other thing these days that I've been doing at work is if you want to package yourself differently, also try to use AI. So, for example, if I want to send an email to somebody in the company asking for resources, I can ask Microsoft Copilot, how do I, and then I put my situation there, and then it will. Sometimes it gives you very creative ideas that you didn't even think of. So if you want to repackage yourself, put your experiences into AI and then say, how can I repackage myself or however you want? But sometimes you get some ideas that are clearly out of the box.
Thank you so much. Definitely leveraging on the artificial intelligence that we have at our disposal. Okay.
Can I add just one comment as well?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
One of the things I learned earlier on in my career, I think sometimes given our nature and just our upbringing in Africa, we don't tend to brag about our accomplishments because it's frowned upon. So one of the things that I want to encourage everybody is speak about your accomplishments and proudly do so, because with that level of confidence, people can trust you. They see that you have the ability to get something done. So don't be afraid to brag about your accomplishments. Do it and do it well. That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much. We do have a question about someone who wants clarity. Is it a good idea for F2 visa to seek asylum and include their dependents?
I would encourage speaking to a lawyer, especially if the F1 person is also not seeking asylum, because the F2 visa is a subset of the F1. So whatever the F2 does impacts the F1. So I think that's a good family meeting with a lawyer, right?
Right. I was actually going to just add, guys, when it comes to anything that has to do with your visa and its validation, let's include lawyers here. Remember, we are just purely talking about careers and choices. Anything legal, we will definitely have to bring in lawyers to help you with that conversation.
And there were a couple of resources that were shared in the chat for legal help. So please feel free to reach out to those. They will be able to help you. Gladys, you say that you're raising your hand. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, my question is a bit different. My name is Gladys Jagacha. I'm just going to ask a question with reference to not-for-profit organizations. We have an organization that serves the whole of Africa, and the challenge is finding individuals who are willing to volunteer. Is there a smart way? We've chat GPT'd all the questions, but people are excited when they hear about the prospects of this and the outcome, and how well it will serve us as a continent, as Africans and people of African descent. But the commitment to volunteer is not there because people are largely busy. And I'm just talking primarily to people with different skills who may have time to support not-for-profit organizations. Thank you. Like what is the smartest way to get people to engage and actually do something? Thank you.
Hey Gladys, happy to take this question offline as well. But
thank you.
The thing is, there's a lot of organizations, Fortune 500 companies and everything in between that have social impact initiatives. And we've been with some of our work at Career Pals, we've started to collaborate with other nonprofits who are having some of the challenges that you're mentioning. But there's a lot of social impact programs because these Fortune 500 companies and everything in between are also looking for a way to give back. And so we can definitely talk more.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much. Miss Matida McConaughey, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to speak. Auntie Gladys, she talked about finding people who are willing to volunteer, and I think something, especially trying to get people to feel like they will get something out of it. Obviously, when you give back, you get more out of it than you would think, but trying to convince people that that is just how volunteering works can be difficult. So forcing them to have some skin in the game, I've seen that be very successful. Building a membership model around a nonprofit, it makes people feel more involved, and like kind of creating that membership space. It also adds a level of exclusivity, so people want to be a part of a club. And it also kind of generates an income if it's an annual membership fee, and it can go towards whatever initiatives the nonprofit is doing. But I think that a membership model, however that looks, is definitely beneficial. It forces people to care, even though they should just care.
No, too. Thank you. I'll follow up with you, Matilda. Thank you very much.
Can I throw in a correction that I feel like needs to be addressed? When you mentioned that our culture does not support volunteerism, I need you to know that we came from a culture of volunteerism. I was delivered by my grandmother, and many in the community came to support my mother and my grandmother. So I think that sometimes we have to look at a context, right? You understand volunteering in the United States. We have a cultural background. I know that Zimbabweans give and volunteer all the time. So let's be mindful. Let's be mindful when we label ourselves as a non-volunteering culture, because the word volunteer doesn't exist in the context that you know it in the United States. Ubuntu is volunteering. When there's a funeral, people bring food and give time to support the bereaved. So it goes in all of those places. And please remember, it is not just volunteering to earn money. It is volunteering to support our community. So it just really makes me cringe when I hear that we are not a giving community or culture. We are. I think we are. And we're not always paid. We're not always recognized for those activities, but we're very giving.
Thank you for that.
Can I just come in a little bit in there, Bridget?
Absolutely.
I want to resonate with these 2000s kids who are born 2000s upwards. I think if you're coming from home, right now it's very difficult for our kids to understand volunteering, in the sense that even if you go home right now, someone to just show you a street will be asking, what are you going to give me? It's a culture that has already started. We didn't grow up with that culture, where you are ready to help, you are ready to support, but right now everything is about, what do I benefit from it? You want me to do that? What am I going to get out of it? So it's like you are no longer, the young people are no longer experiencing Ubuntu that we experienced then, which I think is kind of a challenge, because it's a culture that is in our country being recreated in a negative way than what we know, the volunteering that used to be there in the past. So I'm sure when you come to America now, you're like, oh, I've got to do it. It's a must. And in our country now, it's no longer the same. But I agree with what Mama Alisa said, that it has been our culture, and I hope it's something that can be continued to be talked about in our own country. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Makai. Auntie Alisa, I'm not. What I meant about my comment, really, to clarify, is it is not for lack of trying, and I'm from that age group that understands what you described. but you also have to factor in the socioeconomic factors that cultures evolve. And for somebody who has stayed in America for the longest time before going back home, there is an evolving culture where it is need based. So the volunteering, like we're going to funerals, that's always going to be part of our culture. But I meant in terms of looking at an organization and willingly doing something for without payment. Those people are actually looking for employment as well. So I think it's a whole learning place that it is a blend. There's fluidity in what we knew, what is happening, and what the future might look like. Hence the need to go back to the drawing board and have conversations about the values of our culture that actually worked from the African tapestry of relationships as you articulated them before. So it's very necessary to have these conversations on a broader platform so that we educate each other and learn and unlearn who we really are. That becomes in our identity quest. So that's what the organization that I'm representing talks about. It's called Being African. And we are all things African, and we are willing to have conversations and dialogues. So it would be very helpful for you to inbox me because I'm willing to learn from your perspectives as well. It's very necessary. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. And yeah, I hear you totally.
Yep. And Auntie Gladys, if you'd like to drop your contact in the chat as well, that will be helpful for people who would like to partner with you in your organization. Have a couple more questions to go. I came to the U.S. on a non-academic route and would like to further my studies. Am I considered an international student? And are there financial resources available to help?
I can definitely take that one, and I believe there's probably going to be a separate discussion in the coming weeks that focuses on like scholarships, if I'm correct, right, Pastor? But yeah, I think the transition from going from like visitor to F1 student, there are processes for that as well. But it's possible, right, to apply for college or university here. And in terms of the process to do that, right? Like there's a lot of scholarship money out there, but then with the dotted line, right? Like we also understand the times. So look at the current climate that we're in. For example, Columbia University just lost $400 million, right, from the current administration. So it's also important to understand that depending on the program that you're going for, there may be limited financial assistance or financial aid, right? But then there's also like paths where you can go and get like a student loan, for example, without requiring a cosigner, right? So all that information is out there. While we don't, like at Career Pals, we don't necessarily focus on like helping students with that, right? There's also a community of international students that are here that came with some funding, right? And so your answer is also kind of lies within the community of people on this call.
Perfect. Thank you. Next question. Is it advisable to change careers from an engineering degree to a nursing program? There's a lot that has changed in the job market. So if there's anyone from an material science or chemical engineering background or nursing background, I would like to hear from them. I have both offers, but I am currently on an F2 visa.
I'm not sure if I've been talking a lot. I can give the floor to someone else, but.
If you want to, while people are thinking, go ahead if you want to take it, yeah.
All right, so I think I'll sort of like maybe challenge you on that and maybe like really think through the process. And again, without much context on what type of engineering, it'll be very hard for me to provide a pointed answer, right? But I think as you're thinking whether to go left or right, I think it's important again to understand the times and the need, but also, right, like what would actually make you happy, right? Are you going to go down like the nursing route purely because of the sponsorship right? Like sorting out your immigration route, because you're not necessarily in a bad place if you're in engineering, right? It may be a little bit harder depending on the industry that you're trying to break into. But again, without understanding the type of engineering that you're referring to, it might be hard to answer. But I'll say, like, think through whether you're taking this route purely because for paperwork situations, and right, what does that pivot? How does that pivot impact you in your next steps? And are you actually doing it because you're passionate about it? Because if you're passionate about nursing, then yes, right, like you can get your paperwork sorted out that way. But I'll sort of like challenge you if it was the other way around.
Matilda, if you want to take it as well, go ahead.
I would just add to that by saying, especially about like if you're not passionate about either or and you're doing it solely for access or money, I think one thing to note is that your job, your 9 to 5 career, is only about 30 to 40% of your life if you include the time that you're sleeping. So the rest of that time, if you're only working one job and going to sleep, and even doing that every single day, this is something that you'll realize, like, you still have a lot of time to do what you want with your life. That's why you've heard people talk about side hobbies or side businesses. So when you're trying to choose what you're going to do to make money, make sure that you're looking at the opportunity that, hey, I have to like this enough to want to go and do this for about 20% of the time. The other 40% I'm sleeping. Will I still have time to do what I want? And if the answer is yes, I would go with the option that just statistics will tell you you'll be most successful at if you're between those two. And then find a way to, if you don't find passion in what you're doing, finding a way to pivot early on. So if the first option you choose is about money, making sure you're smart enough to and focused enough, goal setting, we talked about goal setting, to find out what else can I add to what I already know to then do what I'm passionate about, not necessarily just what will support me financially, support my visa access, but what am I passionate about? Do it in steps. So the first one, it might not always be about passion, but you need money to survive. So maybe looking at it from that perspective might be helpful. But that's not everything. Keep that in mind.
Thank you so much, Matilda. We'll take one last question here. I'm informed too. I have a passion of being a scientist, pilot, and air traffic controller. I have dreams to go to university. My question is, when I want to become a scientist, what degree should I focus on? What degree should they focus on if they want to become a scientist?
So, I mean, I guess it's very hard because a scientist is a very general term. So, again, without knowing the context there, right? But if I'm listening to the question, it sounds that this is someone who's like, really exploring their interests, right? Their interests in different areas. And then my encouragement to that, right? I think a lot of the times people were talking about internships. Like even if you're in high school, right? I think there are companies that do take in folks that are in high school for internships, right? So I would highly encourage you that if you're thinking about your career early on at this stage, right? Good for you, right? Like you're in a good state. But I think explore a little bit because the decision point for you is really coming down at the time of like graduation, which is a couple of years from now. So I'll highly encourage you to like research, and I know maybe like being in high school, asking you to get onto LinkedIn might be a little bit early, but I use LinkedIn for researching, right? So you might be able to identify, right, people who are posting about opportunities even for high school students, right? Which companies do, some companies don't. So start off by researching if there are opportunities for to intern based on the areas that you're interested in. But I'll say again, like this is a very general response.
Thank you so much. And in the interest of time here, we're getting close to the time we had said we would end. I will ask Angela's question. Auntie Gladys, I'm sorry. I know you spoke a little bit before, but you can always send in your question and we can have it responded to. What's the best way to start a nursing career after taking business studies? Are there organizations that sponsor nursing studies or training? Anyone wants to take that one? If not, we can save it.
Yeah. So you're good. I was just gonna say, like, if you already have like changing from one to the other, really again just depends on what your goals are and where you want to go. But you probably want to find somebody, like, whether if you're already in college or whatever, you may want to talk to a career advisor that can help you, because there's so much that goes into, like, how many credits have you taken? How far are you where you are right now? Or if you've already finished the other program. I always find, like, when you're in this country, having just a bachelor's degree is enough to get you through the door in most cases. And I've seen some programs and nursing programs advertised where if you already have a bachelor's degree, they have, like, some fast track programs that can be done. So if you go on LinkedIn, just look at some of the programs that are out there. I don't have specific details, but I've seen people doing some fast track programs, especially when they already have an undergraduate degree. That's all I can say.
I want to add on to that as well. There are, like, schools, you just have to do, like, a little bit of digging, but there are some schools that will let you do, if you already have your undergraduate, you can do a master's in nursing, but they're going to require you to take, I guess, like, some prerequisites, because, like, you're going to need, like, your biology, your sociology. So if you don't have certain requirements, like, they're going to ask you to take that. So that's probably going to be, like, just depending how fast you can do it. It could be like 6 months to a year, and then you can actually get into the program after that. I think the program is probably as short as like 2 years or less even. So yeah, it just depends, like, what school you want to go to. But yeah, I just wanted to echo what Auntie Elizabeth just said.
And sorry, to add on to what Michelle has just said, I did that. I had an MBA and I went into nursing. What they did was you have to take aptitude tests to do what Michelle has just mentioned. But I would also caution people about nursing schools. They are a dime a dozen. So now you might want to find out what nursing schools are of repute, because you can graduate and then you find that you may not be employable in hospitals because of the institution that you went to. So please do your homework and see if they're actually accredited, because some of them will give you very accelerated pathways and you will be employed, but only in certain areas of nursing. So making the decision and finding out exactly what you want to do with the nursing is very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're coming right to our time. And before I hand over to Pastor Rebecca to close us out here, I just want to thank all the panelists. I want to thank the speakers who shared their lived experiences. I want to thank all of you guys who joined spending this Sunday afternoon with us. We really appreciate that you came out. You are hungry to know more. I've seen a question there. If there'll be more, are we going to have a follow-up on this? Yes, we're going to have more conversations around this. And for that, we will kindly ask that you fill a feedback form that I just sent over. Here, you just let us know how we did in this conversation. If you found this conversation helpful, what other topics you'd like for us to share and talk about, feel free to use that form that I've just sent over there. So thank you again, and I'll send this time back to Pastor Rebecca to close us out.
Oh, thank you so much, our moderator, Bridget Chinze. We really appreciate you for running with this one. God bless you. Many, many thanks to all those who have attended. Thank you, Cassandra, for opening this platform for us, the space. God bless you. Let me thank all our panelists. Thank you, Mama Lita. I know she has maybe probably drove, but thank you so much. Let me give a biggest thank you to Gladys Jakachira, my Jakachira. She was my Mujiba, running behind the scenes, doing everything else that I needed. Thank you so much, my Jakachira. God bless you. God bless you. Look what your God has done. Thank you to our sister Catherine. God bless you. I appreciate you. Thank you. God bless you. To Sister Elizabeth, may God bless you. In absentia, I know Baba is already dropped. Dr. Chikwana, I really want to thank you. Thank you, Matida, my beautiful daughters there, and Michelle. Thank you so much. Mr. Munya Choga. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the spirit of Ubuntu working together, the unity, the love, and all those who were behind the scenes, Mama Muzorewa and all the team that was in Sisi Chikore and all other guys who jumped in to support, answer questions. I really want to thank you. May God bless you. Our children needed to hear this. Not only our children, I heard some saying, I started my career at 40 to change my career at 42. Mine, I started, I think I was almost 47. I started my own doctorate. So I'm excited that yes, it's possible. And I want to thank you for being present up to this time. This was our first one, and we were just wondering how much time do we need? What will it look like? And I think we had an opportunity to really assess and see that what kind of time next time can we do. And not only that, allow me to thank the team that was also behind the scenes, working with the moderator and others. Thank you so much. God bless you. We appreciate you. At this point, may we just bow our heads in prayer. Father, we are thankful. We are grateful. Thank you for your love. Thank you for our children who are here in this country. Thank you, Lord, that you are helping us and that we believe and we trust that they will be given peace and rest and understanding, especially in this season where there's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding. But Father God, we just want to trust you because we know the earth and the fullness thereof belongs to you, God. Thank you for all the mothers who are here to guide them. Thank you for the fathers who are here to guide. Thank you for all those, Lord, who are on different career paths that are expecting, Lord, to change, to switch, to move up and to do different things. Thank you for your spirit that is guiding them so that they will not make mistakes. Thank you for all those who are working to help our international students and all the other people who are working tirelessly to support and be there for them. We thank you, Lord, that you are helping us as Zimbabweans and even all our friends who surround us and support us. Bless them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen and amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. I just realized that the last feedback form was requesting people didn't have access to respond to it. That has been fixed, so feel free to send in your feedback. Tell us how we did. Give us 2 stars, 3 stars, 5 stars is the most preferable. And as we go away, remember, as you're working, if you ever get tired, do the chicken banana. Have a good night. Take care.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Let's meet again.
All right. Thank you all.
God
Bye
bless
for now.
you. Wow. Thank you. Well done, Job. Thank you, Cassandra, behind the scenes.
No, thank you for this idea, Pastor. You did great. Thank you. What an awesome event.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the support team, the navigation team. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Until next time. Bye.
Auntie Cassandra,